Sally, I was very interested in one thing that perhaps wasn't in your presentation, which is relevant to what we're going to discuss now. And that's tapping into what we've just been discussing there with Sean about what the Minister said. The cultural resistance to making visas available for people to come in. And particularly in this country, at a time of high unemployment, almost the belief that these people who come in from outside will take jobs that would otherwise be available to Irish people. How do you overcome that cultural resistance? How have other countries done it?
I think can you hear me? Yeah. I think by the end of the day, it's really a matter of information, because, I mean, the tendency is that we see the labor market as fixed. We have a number of jobs, and if an immigrant comes in, I mean, that job is taken from a native. And I think we need to communicate the fact that the labor market is actually dynamic, meaning that you actually create new jobs. I mean, for instance, the IT sector. I mean, when it's growing, it's capital growth, but it's also labor force growth. So, I mean, you're actually creating new jobs within that market. And when you recruit, for instance, high-skilled engineer IT technicians from abroad, when that person creates 2 to 5 new direct jobs within that sector, these jobs are not high-skilled often. These are middle-skilled jobs. It would be salespeople, it would be project managers, it would be marketing, PR. And these jobs, because you need to have some sort of market knowledge, these jobs would often go to natives. So in that sense, when you recruit, and I mean the 1 to 5, a proposal or a suggestion that the Minister said, that you recruit one person from abroad and you create 5 new jobs. You need to communicate that these 5 new jobs are actually for natives, meaning that if you're not recruiting that one person, you're missing out on 5 new jobs. And this is not something that is communicated a lot today. We tend to be stuck in the notion of the fixed job market or labor market, and we need to move away from that in order to sell this, because obviously it can seem counterintuitive. We have unemployment. Why do we need to recruit?
Sally, there was something else that you actually said at the very end of your presentation which really struck me, because you talked about these people that we would bring in as being guests rather than becoming members of our family. Because it's a big thing that has been emphasised here in Ireland in recent years, that these are the new Irish and that we have to be accommodating for them to set down roots. What you're suggesting is something different, is that to regard them as temporary visitors to the country. Why so?
I think it's, again, looking at the mobility patterns at the moment, what we see is that there is a rise in temporary migration. People tend to come for a number of years and then leave again. And it's not from one country to another. It tends to be more circular. So you see that you're leaving from Iran, for instance, then you're moving, I mean, as for in my case, left for Dubai and then for Denmark and then the UK, sometimes in the US and then back. So, I mean, my migration patterns tend to differentiate from what we see in the past. And when I go to a new country, I have no intention of staying there for more than a few years. I know I'm going to leave again. So the way I'm going to spend my effort in order to integrate wouldn't be as deep as it would be if I were planning to stay there for a lifetime. And I think we need to take this into consideration. We can't change that pattern. I mean, it's very strong, the circular migration. We can't change it as one country. So we need to adapt to it and see how can we develop policies so that we can get the most out of the fact that we have temporary guests.
Sean.
Although I really, I admire so much of your presentation, that is one piece that I'd like to change. I would love Ireland to be a destination country rather than just a country that people migrate out of. I mean, so many of us Irish are actually, we chose a destination and then we stayed there, right? So there's 4 million Irish in Ireland and there's 40 million in the United States. So actually, why not make Ireland a destination country? You know, allow Ireland to be like a Canada or an Australia or New Zealand, where people do come to settle and where we welcome people in, and then grow that diversity in the society. I agree that there are some structural challenges there, but I think that there is an option. Now, you say you're from Iran. I guess you're going back to Iran eventually, or maybe not. I mean, there is a destination country for you someplace. It may not be Iran. Like, why not Ireland? It's
Yeah, because Sally, it is. Are you perhaps an exception here that most people do like to set down roots, and even if they do leave a place that they grew up and they called home, they like to establish a new home and stay there? That for the majority of people, they're not mobile. They actually want to settle.
I think that's really something we need to accept today, that very few people have a destination country, really. That is something that is much more linked to the past, that you go to one country, a destination, and you set roots. I usually say, and in my networks, that our country is the world and not so much a specific country. Because, for instance, when I look at my networks and my high-skilled migrants as myself, we have global networks. We do not have, and I mean, even family-wise, our family tends to be spread all over the world. So in that sense, the old notion of roots is changing a lot. And I think, I wouldn't say, and in that sense, I'm not a politician, and I wouldn't say do not do it. I would just say it's working against the stream. So you need to really know what you're doing and how you're doing that. I mean, I think it's admirable, but I would say it is one of the most difficult strategies at the moment to go for that. So usually when I look at smaller countries that are really maybe experiencing a hard time recruiting, I usually say go for the easiest way, which is develop a strategy that can really utilize the fact that people are staying here for a short amount of time. So you're not spending a lot of time training them, and you're not losing a lot of knowledge when they leave. Take that into consideration. But aside from that.
Jane Lorrigan from IrishJobs.ie. How attractive do you think would that be to employers, that they would be hiring temporary talent that might decide to leave in 3 or 4 years' time?
I think anything that will help companies fill the gaps that they have at the moment will be attractive. I mean, we know the IrishJobs.ie jobs index, we issue it every quarter. We know last year ended on a very positive note. The number of jobs available in the country had increased by 25% year on year. We also know that 60% of the companies who employed people in the with IT skills last year reported having either difficult or extreme difficulty in filling those roles. And that increasingly companies are looking abroad and they're outsourcing key IT projects. So there is a demand here, and companies are struggling to fill it.
Okay, but the balance, would it be attractive perhaps to many employers that if potential employees aren't too concerned about pension arrangements, for example, aren't too concerned about the sort of things that traditionally would have been the case that people looked as long-term employment, that creates an opportunity for employers for lower cost flexible workers?
Or higher cost workers who will come in and will work on specific projects for a defined period of time and then move on. The foreign, as Sally was saying, there are a lot of people who look to move and stay in a country for a couple of years. The foreign direct investment companies in Ireland, the IDA has been extremely successful in bringing in FDI companies. But a number of those companies have said that they would have fear now, if they're putting up their hands for a mandate for a big project to be run out of Ireland, to say, well, actually, am I going to be able to get the people to do this project, or am I going to be able to get the senior skilled people that they can build a project team around, that they can do that project successfully in Ireland, or would it be better to let that go to another region? And the companies that we've spoken to last year, the ones who had the most difficulty hiring staff, they had difficulty hiring senior level, it was mid to senior level people, projects, which very often by their nature are short term.
Does that mean then that nationality becomes almost irrelevant to these employers, that they don't care whether the people they're going to hire are Irish, European, Asian, whatever, as long as they can find somebody to fill the job?
As long as they can find somebody to fill that job, to allow them to do that project, to build that project team around them and complete the work that needs to be done in Ireland.